Hello and welcome to the Follower Academy webinar with Aondo and me, David Jones. If you're watching the recorded version of this, it was held live on the 19th September at 7:30 in the evening. So we do this webinar a couple of times a month in the evening. In addition to this, I also do a market outlook webinar on a Wednesday lunchtime at 12:30, where we look at sort of big trends in the markets, where the opportunities could be for self-directed trading, that sort of stuff. But tonight is all about copying other traders, where we're looking to find a bunch of traders who are hopefully have a good track record and effectively mimic their trades in our account with real money. And I've got a couple of accounts with Aondo. I've been doing social trading for about 18 months, and I think it's quite a complementary way of trading. If you're trading yourself, it's another way, I think, of maybe gaining exposure to the markets and smoothing out some of the bumps in volatility. But hopefully you'll see that this evening as we go through the examples and look at some traders in a bit more depth. So I'm going to assume sort of very little knowledge. We'll start right from the basics and take it from there. So the basic principles, what we're looking to do is identify profitable traders with a decent track record, hopefully a little bit of history, so we can see that their trading success is not just a flash in the pan, that they've built up a succession of profits, regular profits, if not month on month and quarter. So we'll be looking at that next. We're going to take a look at some traders, how they're ranked. Then once we've done that, we'll start building a portfolio. So the whole idea is we have an account with, let's say, I don't know, £1,000, £10,000, whatever it is, and then we build up a portfolio of these traders, and we're going to start following them on our account. So every trade they do, so if trader XYZ buys the Dow this evening with a 100-point stop loss, then that trade gets automatically executed on our account with the same stop loss but a level of risk that we're comfortable with. Which brings me to point number 3 on this slide: managing risk. It's really important. If you've ever done any trading yourself, you'll know how important managing risk is, and it's just as important if you're following other traders. Just because someone's got a great track record doesn't mean they can't go off the rails. I've blogged about a real account. I've done a few updates. I'll give you the link at the end. Since February, and I think it's up about. It was up. I think the last update was in July, and it was up about 7%. But one of the traders who had fairly short track record but good returns just seemed to completely lose it one month and go crackers and blew up. So managing the risk is really important. And then once we've done all this, I'll show you how we can monitor the positions via WeTrade, which is Aondo's sort of simple web browser, which I think is probably all you need for having a snapshot of how the trades are going on your account, but looking at it in more detail using TradeHub, which is their trading platform. So with TradeHub, you can place your own trades, but you can also monitor what's going on with the traders that you're following. Okay, so let's. What we'll do, we're not going to do lots and lots of PowerPoint this evening. We're going to take a look at these profitable traders. So let's get on the platform. So what we're going to do, we're going to log on to WeTrade. We're going to bring up this rankings list, which is like a league table of traders that we can sort on various criteria. The obvious one is P&L, how profitable or not they've been, and then we'll drill down into the data of some of the traders who look interesting and look to follow them. So let me just switch screens here and we'll take a look. So here we go. So I've gone to Aondo's website here, just make sure that's working. So what I want is the social trading accounts. If you set an account up, this is what you have when you log on. So we go to the social trading account, WeTrade. I think I've logged on already. There's a notice there about some contracts that are expiring. So I have an account and a portfolio set up, but we'll come back to that in a second. Let me just take one of these people out of the portfolio so we can add somebody else in. And I'll go back to that page there. Okay, so what I'd like to look at is, first of all, traders to follow. So I want to have a look at traders P&L. So if I go to show more traders, it's going to bring up the ranking list at the league table. So here we go. So how it works is, and you could do this yourself if you wanted to, there are traders on the Aondo platform who make their track record available to be viewed. So they'll do trades, and they're basically offering themselves up to be followed. So at the moment, have I just filtered that by real money? So at the moment, the number of traders we can follow, you can see up here, 940. So there are 940 traders of varying degrees of skill and profitability who are making their trades available to be followed, and they'll just be executed automatically on the platform. So there's, you can see over here, robot. At the moment, this is being sorted by trades per month. So the most prolific trader at the moment is this person called Robot, who's traded a very impressive 862 times over the last month on average, and has got a P&L of just over 1%. The next most active one, much better P&L of 85%, and trades per month of 720. But what I'm going to do, I mean, for me, the obvious way to start drilling down into this, because I'm trying to find traders who are profitable, is to sort this by their overall P&L. So let's click on it. Here we go. So what we have now, the best performing trader who we can follow is this, I'm presuming it's a chap, this man here, Peter Lloyd, 5757. So overall P&L up 258%, and the period I've chosen is a 1 year period here. So over the last year, this Peter Lloyd is the best performing one, making a 258% return, which is, you know, clearly a pretty impressive number. He's more than trebled the account over the last 12 months. The next one, and it drops off quite sharply, which you would expect. The next one is Wertabo, up 117%. Then Giuseppe, or Josep, at 91%, and so it goes on. So on the face of it, we have some impressive traders there. But I would suggest, and again, I think if you've ever done any trading yourself, you'll know this, there's more to it than just the naked profit or loss number. It's all well and good, you know, doubling your account in a year, but if you ended up doubling your account by, you know, risking everything in month 11 or a you know, on a bang or bust trade, that's probably not the sort of trader we want to be following. You know, so another important consideration here is the next column, DD, it's drawdown. So drawdown is along the way, what's the biggest amount of profit or biggest, you know, drop their account experience? Because if you're, the drawdown figures here actually aren't too terrible on the face of it, but if we took this one down here, for example, it's got, I think, the biggest drawdown on this page. So Aon Meister V2, so it's the sixth most profitable trader over the last year, 84% return, so that's a cracking return, but along the way gave up almost 40% of the account. Now that might be a level of volatility that you're comfortable with, but you know, at least you can see, well, what sort of swings can I expect on my account? If we look at this trader down here, DAX Call 3, it's an old favourite, this one. This is one's been on the platform for a while. Returns of 61% over the last year. Okay, so 20% less than Aon Meister, but a drawdown of only 12%. So along the way, your account would only have dropped off by 12% before the next swing upwards. So you know, I think it's always good to look at these two numbers together. Then we have things like trade frequency, how often they're trading, when do they place their last trade, number of followers, how popular are they. Votan's another one, this one here, who's been on for a while. Chunky drawdowns there, though. Drawdown of a third along the way, but 443 followers and 441 followers for DAX Call 3. So there we go, we've got 940 traders here we can follow. Now, what I'm going to do is straight away introduce another filter, because even if you're trading on Aondo's demo account, so you're not trading with real money, you can still make yourself available to be followed. So hopefully that makes sense. So you could trade, you for example could trade and build up a track record of 30% return over the last month and have people following you, but you're not actually risking your own money. So for me, the most basic bit of criteria is I only want to follow traders who are trading with real money. So I can switch that filter on, and you'll see this number change. So from over 900 traders to follow, if I click on RMT, real money traders, the list has changed straight away. So we're now down to 231. But I think that's okay. I'm only looking to follow a maximum of 5 traders. So having 231 to pick from is I think a fair enough number as far as I'm concerned. But you can see we've lost quite a few of those guys or ladies who are on that page there. So the best performer has been this Giuseppe with a P&L of 91% over this 12-month period, maximum drawdown of 34%. Then we have Votan, who we saw on that previous page, that's call 3, and so it goes on. So we can see, again, how profitable have they been, what's the drawdown been like. Down here, Jane has had the smallest drawdown. I think I follow him in another account, or her in another account. So a return of just over a third over the last 12 months, which again is an impressive rate of return. You know, I think if you've ever done any trading yourself, I think plenty of us, when we start trading, we maybe think we're going to be making 20–30% a month and it's going to be free money. The reality, of course, is somewhat different from that. You know, so for me, if I can sit there and someone can crunch out a 1–2% profit month on month very consistently, that's a cracking trader to follow. And you can see actually from the shape of Jane's P&L, it's a really smooth P&L. So for me, it's a combination of things on this first page. It's their overall P&L, of course, how much are they giving back along the way, how much volatility are we likely to experience, and finally, because my background is all technical analysis and charting, I'm looking for a smooth P&L. So this sort of thing here puts me off a bit, where suddenly it goes bang and then rallies. So I want to see, hopefully, the smoother the P&L, the better. So let's take a look at a couple of these traders in a bit more depth. So let's click on Giuseppe and find out a little bit more about how this person has actually built up this track record. So once we click in there, we go into the trader profile. Okay, so we've got a bit more information about how they've been trading. We've got their historical track record, how well they've been doing. So let's just look at some of the headline figures here. So risk score 5, so in the middle, not that popular, sort of middling, 34 people following, claims to have more than 10 years experience, and performance since the start, 118%. But you can see down here, this trader started back in June 2016 and had, for the best part of the year, something of a wobbly start. You know, was at the end of last year was down 22% over 6 months. That's not a good track record, but seems to have somewhat found their mojo this year and has established a really solid trend in their P&L. So you know, that's an encouraging, I think maybe an encouraging turnaround we've seen in this trader. But again, you know, that's a reasonable track record going back to June of last year. Down here in purple, the purple dashed line, that's the performance of the DAX, so the German stock market index. So that's one thing that we can use as a benchmark. But let's just dig a little bit deeper. So volatility, 11.5%. So again, not too ridiculous. Number of trades, 320 over what, an 18-month, well, not quite an 18-month period, sort of 15, 16-month period. So what's that? About 20 trades per month, I suppose. Winning trades, number of winning trades, 48%. To me, that's quite encouraging, because if we have a look at some other traders in a few minutes' time, you'll see some traders have winning trades of 90%. And for me, that always flashes a warning sign. You know, if someone's got a winning track record of 90% of trades end up profitable, do they have a problem taking losses? You know, do they just hang on and hope the market comes back? So I think this is a much more realistic, real-world figure. As is this one here. Winning months, 76%. So just over 7 out of 10 months have been winners. Last activity, 18th September 2017. Now, there's a couple of things on here that flag up as maybe red lights to me. So first of all, real money trader since June 2017. So Giuseppe has been active on the platform since June 2016, but only started trading with real money in June of this year. Now, the account has grown, has continued to grow since then, because sometimes you'll often see if people make the switch from a paper-based trading system to a real money system, you'll often see that they struggle. You know, once there's real cash on the line, the psychology changes. So, but this one seems to have done okay. Then we have that drawdown figure, that maximum drawdown figure, which seems to have been hit last year. You know, giving up, presumably up about 10%, and ended up being down minus 23%. So, you know, a good third drawdown. So maybe, you know, we need to be aware of that. Although we haven't seen that degree of volatility this year. So on the face of it, you know, I think that this one is of interest to me. I think to build into my portfolio. So we'll scroll down. We can see the numbers here in a bit more depth. And again, I think this is always worthy of a bit of attention. How has this person done month on month? Now, there's one thing that stands out. November last year, look at that, minus 20%. Now that was November. I think was a difficult one for plenty of traders, both on the Aondo platform and sort of out there in the wider world, because that was the presidential election. And of course, the surprise was that Mr. Trump got in. The second surprise was the market just took off. You know, we had a bit of a wobble in the overnight market when the results were coming out, but then the S&P started a rally, and the US market started a rally, and European indices followed them. You know, that in American markets is going on till today. So I think a lot of people got wrong-footed, which would explain why I had a bad month. Actually, I think maybe I'm being a bit too generous there. I mean, that is a terrible month. You'd have thought that maybe you want to look at the risk controls a bit there. But a really bad November, really bad December. So ending last year down 22%, 23% year to date. This year has been a lot more impressive. So 28% return in January, which is a bit unsustainable, and maybe slightly more realistic returns. But actually, even double-digit returns in a month tend to make me a little bit nervous. But up 180% so far. So you can see no losing months so far this year after a fairly horrendous time towards the end of last year. Then we have the breakdown, asset allocation. So what does this person trade? Well, actually on Aondo, you often see people focusing on the German market, because there's a lot of, because Aondo started off in Germany, lots of German clients, so they tend to focus on the German 30, the DAX. This one is a little bit different. So it trades a bit of everything. So euro dollar, about 17% trades euro dollar, 15% crude oil, 10% in pound against the dollar, 6% in Facebook, a little bit of everything here, and then a whole lot of other stuff in here. So this one seems to have quite a broad portfolio approach to trading, which again I think is often a good thing, because so many of the traders on here do focus on the DAX. So this is quite an interesting trader to add in if you want a bit of a mix of assets of trades that you're following. And then down here we have a bit more P&L metrics if we want to dig into those a little bit deeper. And then finally we have open positions. So what trades is this person running? So let's see, we've got the most recently open trade, Vonovia, currently down about 550 euros. A few more in here, Alibaba up 337, down 700 on gold, up 1400 on Netflix, and so it goes on. So these are the open positions, and if you want to, you can go in and scroll through any losers. And again, it seems a reasonably sensible mix between the size of the winners and the size of the losers in there. So you can go back and look at their historical track record. So I think I am going to add this one to the portfolio, but we'll come back to this one because we'll have a look at someone else in a minute. So let's just flip back onto that ranking list. Here we go. So here's our top traders ranking list. So sorted by P&L. Let's have a look at this one down here, Jane, because I like the P&L chart. Pretty P&L chart. Not too much volatility. Not too much in the way of drawdown. So let's find out a bit more about this one. Let's click on here. So Jane, I think he's already in this portfolio anyway. So again, we're seeing the same sort of stats. The previous one had a risk profile of 5. This one's got a risk score of 3, so a bit less risky. Going back to track record, one of the longer track records, going back to February 2016, and then reading down here, trading with real money since May 2016, so since back here. That's when the real money trading started. Volatility, I think the previous one was 11%. This one's 3%. Number of trades, 970. Winning trades, and this is what I was talking about. This is maybe the worry. Maybe some people hang on to their losses a little bit too long and wait for the market to come back. Having said that, it doesn't seem to have damaged Jane's track record. Winning months, 8 months out of 10. Winners, real money trader since May 2016. Maximum drawdown of 9%. And again, let's have a look at those all-important monthly numbers. So last year, a couple of big months in there, sort of in this sort of zone here, Feb, March, April, and then just fairly steadily grinding out a profit. Made money in November when lots of people suffered. So ended the year up 44%. And then this year it seems to be going pretty much in the same direction. So 3 losing months this year, but overall still up 26% for the year. So it looks like, you know, I mean, that's a cracking return and a fairly steady Eddie trader in terms of what the P&L looks like. Scroll down, German 30, so 75%, 3/4 of trades done on the DAX, the German 30 stock market index. So this is one who does tend to specialize. Then we can scroll down and see what positions have been opened and closed. And there we go. Okay, so that's that one. So let's so that's sort of drilling down and looking into traders. You know, and if we move off this first page, P&L, there we go. So we've got 10 there. The 10th best performer made 34%. Let's move on to the second page. The 20th best performer made 22%. So these are still respectable numbers. There are still traders turning in returns of sort of 1.5% a month in the top 30, and then it starts to drop off the deeper we go into the numbers. But I think we've got a good chunk of traders there that you can find to follow that might suit your own particular investment approach. So we've picked you know, a couple of likely candidates there. Let's just flip back onto PowerPoint for a sec just to see what we're going to do next. So the next thing, once we've come up with a list of traders who we might want to think about following, you know, what we want to do is actually follow them. So we're going to do that next. We'll do that by accessing the portfolio builder. So we add them into our portfolio. Once they're in the portfolio, there are various levels of risk control that we can use. So we can set risk levels per trader, and then the final step is to start executing it on the live account. So let's do that. So let's start following traders. So let's just flip back to here. Okay. So let me go back to page number 1, and let's follow that Giuseppe person. Where is he? There he is. Okay, so we'll click on that. There he is, or she. No, he is a he, according to his picture. So we'll click on follow. Okay, he's been downgraded because he had a maximum drawdown on the way. That's okay. Are you sure you want to add this top trader? Yes, I do, because I think he's past the worst. So we have a, quite a handy warning there saying this person, because he did badly last year, has been bumped down. Aonda have these various career levels you can see from the little flags here. So clearly this person was making progress, but has got bumped down again. But let's follow anyway. Let's throw caution to the wind. So here we go. Here is my portfolio. So here are 4 other traders I'd added before. There's Jane. We did take a look at that one, the nice steady Eddie track record. And here's Giuseppe, who we've just added in. So what we have down here, this is the dotted blue line is an idealized P&L. So if I'd followed these traders over the last 12 months, my portfolio would have made 40%. So I'd have seen a 40% return on my account, which would have been wonderful. But unfortunately, of course, we can't go back to 12 months ago and start following traders. So we just got to, hope that the past or the future will replicate the past to some extent. But of course, there's never ever any guarantees of that. So I've got 5 traders in my portfolio. You can have from 1 to 5. It's up to you. Personally, I always have 5 because I think this just to have a bit of a blend, maybe, of different styles. The next thing what we could do now is execute on live accounts. But before we do that, there's a level of risk control that I would recommend doing. Now, what we can do, we can set the level of risk control for each individual trader. So what it means is, if I click on here for Elon Metal, here we go. Let me knock this down to 1 for now. I always have trouble explaining this, so let me try and explain this clearly. If I only had 1 trader in my portfolio and followed them 1 for 1, what it means is, if that trader risks losing 1% on a trade, so let's say they've got a 10,000 euro account and they set a stop loss that means they're risking 1%, then the trade will be done on my account only risking 1% as well. So if I've got a £1,000 account, I'll only risk losing 1% of 1,000 quid, which would be £10. If I bumped it up to 5 times, it means, well, if they do a trade risking 1%, the trade will be mirrored on my account, but at a size of 5%. Okay, so that's if I was just following one trader. But because I've got 5 traders in my portfolio, these 5 here, the risk by Aondo gets knocked down automatically. So if I'm following each trader 1 times, but I've got 5 traders in my account, what it does, if you follow several traders, your risk is distributed evenly amongst all the traders. So with 5 traders in your portfolio, you're then effectively following every trader 1/5 of the risk they trade. So if I'm following Edelmetall 1 times, you can see, because I've got 4 other people in my portfolio, my effective risk factor is 0.2. So actually, if Edelmetall does a trade where the stop loss is 1% away from the entry point, so let's say the DAX is bought with the stop loss 1% away, the trade will be done on my account 1/5 of the risk. So I'll only be risking 0.2% of my account. So the stop loss is still 1% away, but the risk factor, that the amount, is dialed right down. So if Edelmetall is risking 1% of 10,000, so that's a €100 risk, I'll be risking 0.2 of 1% of my account, if that makes sense. It's a way of trying to spread the risk across. Of course, I can bump this up. If I'm quite happy with Edelmetall and think, okay, if Edelmetall does a 1% risk trade, I want to do a 1% risk trade as well. If I bump that up to 5 times, it shows me my effective risk factor is now 1. So if I have confidence in the trader, I can, vary the level of risk I'm taking by using the slider here. I'd say at the beginning, I think the best way, as usual, to find out how this stuff works is to actually do it. But in the beginning, bump the risk down to as low as you're comfortable with. You can bump it down to a tiny amount, and you'll see by the size of the trades in a minute, you really can dial up as much or as little risk as you want to. So let's just confirm that. Let's check the others. What's this one at? So that's at 1. Okay, that's fine. Jane's at 5 times because I like the smooth P&L, so I'm going to stick with that. DAX call is at 0.5 times. Let's bump that up to 1. And then maybe our latest trader, Giuseppe, because he's a new one, let's bump him down to 0.5. So if Giuseppe risks 1%, the trade will be done on my account at 1/10 of 1%. So it's a way of maybe feeling your way out with that particular individual trader. Okay, so that's it. So it shows me it now has readjusted my sort of historical P&L, what it would have been. I can have a look at what it would look like over the last 3 months, the last month, and it's just about scraped a profit, and the last week, I'd be up just over 0.2%. So that's it. I'm ready to go. So I've got a portfolio here of 5 traders in. What I want to do next is execute on the live account. So let's click. Here we go. So we have another warning screen. So because, of course, these traders have been trading on the platform for a while, they have open positions. So, for example, Edelmetall has 198 open trades. If I want to, I can mimic their existing open positions. But of course, there's a problem here. If Edelmetall bought the Dow a week ago, when it might have been 200 points lower than it is now, my trade will get done wherever the market is trading now. So for me, I've got no interest in doing that. So I always choose to ignore the open position, so I don't click any of these boxes and just mimic any trades they do in the future. So click Execute Portfolio. We are ready to go. So we're going to go to the account screen now. There we go. So there's a couple of old trades in my account from people I've followed before. I closed all the positions out before we started tonight, so we can start from afresh. I think that's one I did as a demo, I think a while back. Oh, no, it was this evening. So these are the open positions. So this is like the really high-level view of your account. So this is the this is what's known as we trade, for a high-level view of what's going on in your account. So my account balance, £943 and 75p. My current unrealised P&L is I'm down 7 pence at the moment. in my unrealized P&L, and it's made up by these trades here. And you can see actually just how small the trades end up being. They really are, they're fractional trades. It's not even. For example, on this trade down here, I've got a level of risk that isn't even a penny a point, because I've dialed the risk right down. So I can set the trade to be whatever I feel comfortable with, on that previous screen. So I have very tiny swings in my P&L. The final bit of risk control is this part here. So we have, we've defined the risk for individual traders, how much we're willing to risk when following their trades. What I can also do is set what is in effect a stop loss on my account. So at the moment I've got £943 in the account. I can say, well, if the account level falls to 650, for example, including all open positions, close everything. Close all the open trades and don't follow any new trades. What IONDO do as well, they also have this negative balance protection. So you can never go, your account can never go into debit. So the most you can ever lose is what's in your account. But you can also put this stop loss on your account, where if the account balance falls to that level, whatever you specify, then positions will be closed out and no more new trades will be followed. So there we go. There's my stop loss on my account. And these were recently closed positions before I started tonight's webinar. You can see the tiny size of trades that I've closed. And that's it. It's we're ready to go. So now if anyone does a new trade, it will be followed with an appropriate stop loss. And the way I run this, I think in the beginning I would sort of sit there and check it a few times a day, but after a while of doing sort of copy trading, you maybe get a bit more comfortable with it, and you can just check in. I just check in every couple of days just to see how things are going. But to get a more detailed view, IONDO have their Trade Hub platform. So what we were looking at there was what's known as WeTrade, which is the simple high-level browser view of what's going on in your account. But what we'll do next, we'll log into Trade Hub for a more detailed view. So let's just flip back, because we can do that very simply, I think, from this screen here. So I'll click on my sort of user profile up here, go to Trade Hub, and there we go. I can log on, and I can see things in a bit more detail. There we go. So the information is the same. So what I'm looking at here, my cash balance is £943. My open P&L is minus 8 pence at the moment. There's my account value. I've got £5 tied up in margin because I'm doing tiny positions on this. But to see the positions, I can click on this button up here, Open Positions and Orders. So there we go. So there's I've got Bitcoin, German 30, German mid-cap. There's a couple of German mid-cap trades there, but I can aggregate the positions like that. So if maybe I followed, I'm following 5 traders, and maybe 3 of them today have done separate trades on the German mid-cap index. If I click on aggregated positions, it puts them all into one net position. So I can see I'm up 69 pence on that. I'm down 77 pence on the DAX. And I'm flat on Bitcoin at the moment. But if I want to break those out again, I can see, there we go, I can see the trade I've done and how well they're doing. I can also use this, to look at things like history. So if I click on here, account history, I can scroll down and see trades that have been closed out. I can see things such as financing costs. I can, of course, if I want to download this as a PDF or a CSV or an Excel file, if I want to drill down things in a bit more detail, exactly the same way you can with other trading accounts. And of course, if I want to do my own self-directed trading, let's see what's going on this evening. I think the US market's pushed out to fresh all-time highs yet again. So let's take a look at the Dow. So there's the Dow. There we go. It's come off a little bit over the last couple of hours. Let's say I want to do my own trade on the Dow. I can flip over spread betting trading account. So I can go from my social trading account into my self-directed trading account and do my own trades if I want to. It's as easy as that at competitive market spreads. So I can trade it in here, but let's just flip back to the social account for now. The only reason I wouldn't do it in the social account is because the spread is wider. You know, if we look at the spread in the social account, it's 4 points on the Dow, for example. Let's flip back to the trading account, and it's a bit more reasonable, 2 points. And the reason we have the wider spread on the social account, this is how the traders you're following get paid. They get in effect a part of the spread is their reward for somebody following them. Okay, because clearly they want to make profits on their own account, but they also want to make money if people are following them. But the Trade Hub platform, you know, makes it very easy to track positions, see the history on the account, and that sort of stuff. Let's just have a look at it in a bit more detail. I'll flip back to here. So you can adjust positions. If you disagree with the stop loss that the trader you're following has put on the trade, you can adjust the stop loss if you want to. That's not something I would recommend. I mean, personally, if I'm following somebody, I'm trusting their judgment, you know, so I don't want to interfere too much, but you can take profit, position size. You can view account history, as we saw, including financing costs. You can download account statements and account data, and you can add funds. If you want to top up your account and maybe bump up the risk level of the traders you're following, you can do that within Trade Hub. And as you saw, you can log in directly from the platform. So for me, I always start off with the aunder.com homepage, go to WeTrade, have a high-level view of what's going on, but then go to Trade Hub and see how it's performing. And there's all the data that we saw. You know, you can see your account value, the balance, all of that sort of stuff, and it's very easy to monitor positions, close them out. But it's important to note that any change of positions leads to a separation of that position from the signal provider, from the person you're following. So then, if you do change the position, you've got to monitor and, if necessarily, you know, close or adjust positions yourself. So let's say someone bought the Dow and they're up 200 points, and you're worried that they haven't moved their stop loss to lock in profits. You can do that, but then effectively it becomes your trade. You know, if the market, you know, it's not going to be closed out when the person you're following closes it out. Because you're trading on leverage, on margin, there are financing costs involved, and you can see all of those. They tend to be, you know, particularly the size I'm showing today, you know, fairly minuscule. You know, but there is an overnight financing cost, as there is with all trading, and you can very easily create your own account statements. And that's it. You know, if we flip back onto the platform here, you know, like I say, what I track it in, I tend to track it just in there, just to have the high-level view, and then every month I'll take a look at the traders I'm following by going back to the portfolio builder and just clicking and thinking, okay, let's have a look at Edel Metall's track record. How is this trader doing? Has maybe have they started to lose their mojo? Edel did have a bit of a wobble last year in November, I think, like plenty of other traders did on the back of that election. But overall, the P&L chart still looks good. You know, still making steady profits, still making, you know, quarter-on-quarter profits, up 31% this year. So I'll just dip in every month just to keep an eye that the traders are progressing as they were when I picked them. And it really is as straightforward as that. If you don't have an account, if you open an account, you can play around with the demo for 30 days. So you can follow other traders and see how they perform over the 30 days. And then if you want to, you can fund it with a real account and try it out. There's a couple of questions that have come in. Does it have a charting facility? Yes. So the Trade Hub, the webinar that I do on a Wednesday lunchtime, it's got pretty good charting. Hang on, I might log myself out. There we go. So we were looking at the Dow, for example, the Wall Street markets. If I maximise that screen, you know, we've got the usual. So I've got candlesticks. That's an hourly chart. I can go to a daily chart. There we go. We can see just the size of the rise so far this month. What's that? It's up 700 points, the Dow this month. And you can add the usual things like trend lines. Let's pick up on that. Something like that. Let's go off these lows down here. Pick up on trend lines. Add things in like oscillators. I mean, this is obviously for your own self-directed trading rather than copy trading. But you can build up, you know, all the normal sort of screens that you normally have. Someone's asked what's the minimum. I think the minimum now is £1,000. I think to open an account. So you can open an account, put £1,000 in. But again, you know, with that that stop loss you can set on your account, you know, you can set the level of risk that you're comfortable with. So even though if you put in £1,000 at the beginning, but you think, well, actually, if it drops back 350, I want to be out, you know, you can set all of that up on your account, you know, the level of risk that you're comfortable with by using that risk control, your loss protection there, so you can specify exactly how much or how little risk that you want. But I think that's it. If there are no more questions, I think we are done. I'll just give you a couple of other bits before we wrap up this evening. So if you go, my website where I blogged about a live account is tradeafter.com. So I started blogging about this live account that started off with, I think it was a couple of £1,000 back in February this year, so you can find out a bit more information there. Obviously there's Aondo's website, aondo.com, to find out more. But I do think it's a really interesting way of gaining maybe some extra exposure to the markets, trying to smooth out some of the volatility and setting the risk levels, you know, to the sort of level that you're comfortable with. But as there are no more questions, we'll wrap things up there. Thanks for coming along this evening. We do these weekly webinars at 12:30 where we have a look at, you know, big levels to watch in the markets and where opportunities may be. We do this Follower Academy webinar twice a month. Oh, and there's one more question come through. Hold on a sec. And there's always recordings available, so if you can't make the actual live webinar, you can always watch the recording. I'm already following 5 traders. If I want to increase the risk overall slightly, I simply do it going trader by trader. Is that correct? That is correct, yeah. So you would, if you wanted to increase your financial exposure on any one trade, you just go in and bump up the level of risk on any individual trader. So if we, if I flip back to that screen, I'll show you how you do it. So if we go back to that simple screen, so let's say I thought, well, actually, I'm quite comfortable with my ability to pick traders who are consistently profitable. I could go in and say, right, I'm going to make Eagle Metal, I'm going to bump that one up to 5 or 4.5, and then just go through and do the same for all the other traders, and you'd have a bigger exposure on every trade. Okay, that's it for this evening, I think. Thanks for coming along. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll wrap things up there. Thanks very much.